Hi, and welcome to The Curling Show, the podcast that brings you interviews with the sport's top athletes and the people who shape the game. Brought to you by Fit to Curl, a sport-specific guide to training for the world's greatest game by Olympic gold medalist, Team Martin third, and blogger at curling.ca, John Morris, with a bit of assistance from me, Dean Gemmell. Follow the programs in the book, and there are programs for recreational curlers, elite players, and everyone in between. And you'll be training in a way that should not only help you make a few more shots and sweep more effectively, but will also make it easier to play your best throughout a championship event or a weekend bonspiel. Get your copy of Fit to Curl at fittocurl.com or pick one up at your favorite pro shop. Now, just before this interview gets started, I want to quickly remind everyone, again, if you haven't done so already, to consider helping out Curling Zone as they try to get their site, the site curling nerds like you and I rely on, back up and running. You can make a donation through PayPal. I'll try to post that link at thecurlingshow.com to help them defray the costs of recovering the data they've lost. A two-time world champion, 3 times a Brier champ, and the coach of Team Krista McCarville, Rick Lang. Welcome to The Curling Show.
Hello, Dean. Thanks for having me.
Well, Rick, let's start with the Continental Cups just this past weekend. Big win for the North American side. I guess it was all in the coaching, wasn't it?
Yeah, Neil Harrison and I kidded along the way that we have to give some credit to the curlers, but it was a great event, and our team was outstanding on the ice.
You know, it really was. Your team the North American team was surely dominant throughout. Interesting strategy you guys employed to keep people on the same sheet of ice a lot, which actually shocked me that it seemed like no one had come up with that idea before. When did you come up with that?
Well, I wish I could take the credit for that. I think the one thing we did well was we contacted all of the former captains and coaches who had been involved, because it's one of these events that happens every year or two, and I think a lot of information can get lost along the way. So in talking to former captains in particular, a lot of those ideas were forwarded to us, so I wish I could take credit as if it was a novel idea, but it did work out in a fantastic way, because rather than be too concerned about who's playing who, we were more concerned about preparing for the huge games at the end when all the points were on the line. So, for instance, Kevin Martin didn't play on anything but B, and I think it was pretty, the middle sheet. And it was a pretty foregone conclusion that he would be our team that was out there in the big game on Sunday. So we just wanted him fully prepared for that sheet and the rocks and knowing them all. And, of course, he's very much into that part of the game. So his confidence grew through the weekend, and I think he really appreciated that move.
You talk about that big last game, which, of course, would have been a big last game if the thing hadn't been decided on Saturday. But let's talk format of the Continental Cup for a minute. I really gave it a go this year. I've been critical of it in the past. I stuck with it this year. Of course, the results were not what TSN brass would like, I'm sure, the way it went. But I think there's just some format issues. I used to say stick a fork in the thing. Now I think it has some promise, but I think it needs some real format overhaul.
Yeah, and I guess it's a struggle to figure out what that would be in terms of ensuring that it goes to Sunday. I think that's the only downside of it. I think some of the different events, when you're there and you talk to people that watch them live, a lot of interest in the mixed doubles, a lot of interest in the mixed games. And the players themselves, they think there should be less ordinary games because they play 2 rounds of ordinary curling. And when you talk to them during the event, they said for them that was the least interesting because they do that all the time. So they were really, the players themselves and the fans on site really liked it, when the players are playing on different teams and different than the normal, watching Kevin Martin weekend after every weekend. So I think they could change up the actual draw teams and formats even a little more. But the mathematical part of it and making sure it goes till Sunday is something they really have to work on.
Yeah, and it's hard to, as a fan, to get your head around the points. They always, we make these comparisons to the Ryder Cup, which probably isn't fair, but that's like 14 and a half points. I can get my head around that. When it's like trying to get to 201, I don't know what's available. I'd love to see them put 5 sheets in. And as much as I know most of the curlers that were on the bench, and it certainly looks like a great time, but I'd rather see more people playing and less people cheering.
Well, that's a good point.
Even on the last day, you could have 4 games going on, or 5 games, and maybe the defending champ gets to decide whether they use 3 women's or 3 men's teams, and then you have it all spread out. That's the singles in the Ryder Cup is exciting because there's 12 matches.
Yeah, that's right.
Rather than just one. Even if it comes down to that last skins game, right? I mean, if there's a carryover, the thing could be over in the sixth end.
Yeah, you make a good point, because the ending that occurred Saturday night with 3 games going on and all of them kind of affecting the other game was really quite exciting.
Exactly.
So, if you had that going on Sunday with all 3 sheets involved, I agree with you. That could make it more climatic for sure, and more exciting in the end.
And more challenging for coaches, too. You got to watch all 3 games. And
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's part of it when we're there and watching and kind of keeping track and trying to figure out how everyone's playing and how they're doing with the rocks. It's pretty complex.
That must be a bit more challenging than typical. I mean, I know when I'm covering an event as a media guy, I even have a hard time watching 5 sheets. So trying to watch 3 at a time must be a bit of a trick.
Yeah, it is, and but it's a lot of fun at the same time. And I agree with your point. I think it's well taken. I know most of the fans here in Thunder Bay, when I talk to them, they say it's very difficult to follow the 400 points and exactly know how many is available. I mean, we had trouble with it on the bench, so I'm sure someone at home. And I've been reading that manual for the last 2 months, trying to make sure I knew every nuance in there. But even with that, it's challenging. So simplification would do a lot for it, for sure.
Well, at least you didn't botch those player things like Russ did, though. So you got that going for you.
Well, boy, they took a lot of heat about that, and we were told at the beginning we had to make sure that we got that one right. And that one is a little bit very challenging, in fact, to make sure you got the right players on the ice at the right time and according to the rules. And I could see how easily that could be messed up. But you want your team behind you, too, so you don't want to be making mistakes like that. And you got to do your job right, because they're doing a heck of a good job on the ice.
Right. Hey, let's talk about your main focus throughout a curling season, Team Krista McCarville, a team that's had some real good success these last few years. Bit of a different lineup this year, of course, with your wife no longer in the lineup and Tara George gone. But here's a team that we've seen steady improvement from, and now in my mind, just one of the very best teams in Canada, and yet doesn't play a big schedule due to a number of things. But how does that affect how you prepare this team?
Well, it affects it a great deal. Just unfortunately that our players are in a position where they can't go on the road like many of the teams can and get that experience. The flip side, of course, is that we live in the same city and we have good ice availability, and the teammates are all very, very committed. So I think we have opportunities there that other teams don't. I mean, many teams are, from various cities and can't get together, or they'll plan a weekend of practice. Well, we practice daily, and we have very dedicated practices, and so I think technically we're as sound as anybody out there. Getting the game experience is the big challenge, of course, and sometimes that shows, I think, when we get to big games and championship games, being able to finish them off. So it's a real challenge for us, but we do the best with what we can. We make up a schedule at the beginning of the year, and we follow it very closely, and all the players are open to coaching and open to input, and they work very hard at their game.
I love a lot of the things you bring to coaching. You're one of the few coaches I've seen, and I'm going to sound like I'm praising you here, and I don't really. Well, I don't like to load up praise on this show, Rick. But anyways, when you go out on the ice, when you've gone on the ice for timeouts, I actually like a lot of the things you've done, including asking Krista to show you what kind of ice she's going to call, and weighing in on that, which I think not enough coaches do. But what are some of the things you see, particularly among junior coaches, mistakes junior coaches make?
Oh, there's an interesting question.
Not just in the game either. I'm talking about game because I don't really get to see what you do in practice. But, boy, I see a lot of, to be perfectly honest, a bit of a void when it comes to really good junior coaches. There's certainly some great ones out there, but there seems to be, a lot of times it's a parent or somebody else.
Sure. I think, probably the biggest mistake, and it's not an on-the-ice thing, is that they don't ask for help from the help that's available often in their own clubs or their own areas. I mean, if I was a junior coach in Southern Ontario, I'm going to be asking, the Howards and the Daws and everything to come out and spend an hour with the team and with me as a coach and involve me in that process. I mean, there's many teams in Thunder Bay that haven't asked myself or Al Hackner or Heather Houston for assistance in their coaching. And I think they should. And the ones that have asked, I think have really benefited. I mean, sit down and spend an hour with Al talking about the game and strategy, or have him come out and assess a game and just give him input. I think, the knowledge that's there is just not used or appreciated, or maybe they're just too shy. But, that would benefit a great deal, because The trained coaches have their programs and their knowledge, of course, and that's all great, but I think it goes well with someone who's very experienced to add that part of the game to the coaching. I mean, I could benefit as well, and I'm trying to learn from the coaches that have taken all the training and that have all the detailed material available. I mean, I don't. I'm generally going out of my head, so I'm trying to bring the best of both worlds, and I think they should too.
You talked about Al and about coaching and everything. How much different is the game from back in the days when you played with Al, 82, 85? I was just talking to David Murdoch, and then Bob Count's Scottish blog. He'll show games from the 80s, and the difference is incredible, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The conditions are so incredibly different, and I think that, I mean, I just came back from watching the Continental Cup where there was literally 5 to 6 feet of curl, and the speed was phenomenal, and it stayed that way the whole game. And of course, we would show up with a Briar. We didn't know whether we were going to get 6 inches of curl, maybe 3 feet, and that would have been exceptional. They would take rocks out of a local curling club, and they didn't know what they were going to get till they threw them down the ice. And so today's preparation and conditions are outstanding, and that allows for this game, of course, along with the 4 rock rule and other things that have been implemented. The sweeping is so much better than what we did or tried to do back in the day, and the strategy is so much more complex. But it's hard to compare, of course, because back in those days, I mean, Pat Ryan could hit 1,000,000 rocks in a row and probably could do that a lot better than some of the teams today, but I don't think we could draw with them like they can today.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think the best players of that era would still be great players now, but it certainly was a different game, that's for sure. And I do think the mechanics across the board of the deliveries are loads better than they were. I mean, guys like you and Al, of course, were technically sound, but there were always, you go a little further down the list, the guys who were still competing well, it gets a little shaky back in the day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. I think that the level of play, I mean, literally, I think if you looked at the numbers, when we were throwing a good game, it was 75 to 80%. Now they're throwing 85 to 95%, and a lot of that is on the technical. They work harder at the game than we did. There are people that are on tour now and playing the number of games that they were playing compared to what we were able to play. Of course, they're a lot better than we were.
You did touch on the men's game in Thunder Bay. What's up with the men's game up there? For years it was either you or Al getting the Briar to Thunder Bay, and then when you didn't go, I think it was Larry Pino, wasn't it? Who usually went.
Yeah, Larry
another
Pino,
Thunder Bay guy, and
Thunder Bay or the Harndens out of Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah, and of course Al went and Eric went, but it's been years since hasn't it been a number of years since a team from the Lakehead repped Northern Ontario the Briar?
You're right on. It's 2003 when Scott Henderson went, and I was coach that year. And the provincial championships start in 2 weeks at our home club here, Fort William in Thunder Bay. And, of course, the story has been we haven't sent a team in 7 years to the Briar, and that would have been unheard of back in our day for sure. I think there's some obvious reasons for that. We used to have a circuit here. We had the Grand Prix of curling in Thunder Bay, and all the best curlers would come here. And we also had the McDonald's Classic. So we had 2 huge cash bills right in town that the best players in the world came here. And then we had a small circuit in the Northwest. And then our team took another step and, of course, paid our dues and paid our entry fees and paid our flights and went to Winnipeg and Regina and Saskatchewan throughout Alberta and took our knocks, but then finally, broke through that ceiling. And there's nobody from Northwestern Ontario doing that right now. They're not either able to or they're not making the investment that's required to get out there. And you can see what the results in the Jacobs team. I mean, they are doing that. They're paying the price. They're making the effort, and they broke through last year. And I think they're an outstanding team, and of course we're all hoping for them. But teams from Thunder Bay have a lot of catching up to do. Yeah,
I mean, Brad's team certainly has moved into the elite ranks, and they do put a lot of time and effort into it. I always thought that you guys, a trip to Winnipeg isn't that bad from Thunder Bay, and I don't even see you guys playing much in Manitoba Spiels. So.
No, you're absolutely right, and there's just not a team from here, a men's team, that's doing that. I think Krista McCarville proves that you can do that. You can live in Thunder Bay. We're pretty isolated and far away, but they work hard, they practice hard, they develop a schedule that allows them at least a few times a year to play the best in the world so that they can at least know what's expected, and it's worked for them. They are in the top 5 or 6 of the ladies' teams, I would say. So a men's team could do it. You just have to have the guys put the effort and the time and money into it.
Now, Rick, you've started working, I guess, with the CCA in some sort of role. Tell me a little bit about what's going on with that.
Well, I retired recently from my day job, so I had some time available and had previous contact with the CCA coaching programs and mentioned to Jim Waite that I was, available to do some work and would be interested in furthering my own development as a coach and so on. So last year I was invited to participate with Jim and be the team leader for the CUI team that went to Italy.
Tough spot to have to go to.
Well, it was a tough way to start the job.
Yeah.
No, it was great. It was beautiful, and we had a wonderful trip with the CUI team, and of course they played phenomenal and won. So I am doing that again this year. I'll be the team leader for the men's team, so that involves meeting the championship team in London and going over what they can expect at the Worlds and getting them suited up with clothes and getting the waivers signed and all that kind of thing. And then you spend the entire week with them at the World Championship, just as a support person, a team leader, a manager, making sure their worries are taken care of and that they can concentrate on curling.
All right.
I'm doing that, and then I did the Continental Cup this last week, and it's just play it by ear. I'm kind of on an as-needed basis right now with the CCA, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, I think they'd be wise to hire you, Rick, from what I've seen at events. Hey, what do you think about the new rule that really reduces the number of, there's a coaching intervention now during a game, WCF rule?
It's absurd, actually. Get me going on that one. I'd be talking to you for a long time. I mean, they're trying to eliminate the coaching role in the sport that needs more coaching. I know Kevin Martin doesn't need coaching, of course, but he hasn't grown up with it. But, the next generation, you might have a Jacobs or McEwen team come through as the top men's team that really benefit from coaching, and, in fact, both those teams have. And it just should be an integral part of the game. And, in fact, I spent time on the bench this week with Keith Wendorf, who I'm not sure of his title, but he's with the WCF head of competitions, and Warren Hansen as well. And we had a conversation because I'm really trying to influence that decision. And what we talked about was why not let a coach have contact with the team during the TV breaks. I mean, the Continental Cup, there we were sitting 5 feet away from our teams, and they have a 2.5-minute break, and we as coaches can't talk to them. And the same thing, of course, happens at the Scotties and the Briar. And I think that would be a real positive change. And I don't want to be out there calling shots for the team. They can do that. But what I want to be able to do is influence their play, their style of play, their mood, and how they approach the game. And it's terrible to have to send kids out on the ice that, in junior play that are so volatile, and then you can't talk to them for the next hour and a half. And, I mean, when you bring up examples of other sports, they say, well, tennis is the same way. And I say, yeah, tennis is that way, and it's the only one that's that way. I don't know of any other sport that the coaches can't converse with their team throughout the play.
Well, so golf, I guess, too.
Pardon me?
Golf, I guess, as well.
Yeah, I suppose, but it's frustrating to me that they try to eliminate the coaching, and if we want to develop the game and get better players and get top performance out of all of our teams out there, coaching is generally recognized in sport as something that does that.
Right.
So,
yeah, I'm frustrated by the lack of timeouts for more than anything, but. Because I don't think the game gains much if a team loses because they run out of time. But I don't know. The WCF seems to manage to make they do some things very well, but they seem to make a mess of some of these rule things. That's for sure. So
yeah, well, it's controversial as well. But the coaching consultation thing. Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. And I think that when they have been used on TV, I think they've actually brought something to the game because everybody's sitting in their living room trying to think along with you and the coach and the team, and usually it's a situation that's pretty interesting.
Right, and as Pat Simmons said on the podcast, it's good when the coach gives bad information. That's exciting.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's way harder doing it when you're there than it is on your TV.
Oh, I'd believe it. Even when I'm watching on TV, I'm like, I don't think I'd want to go out there right now and try to weigh in with something that sounded intelligent.
Well, I'm fairly experienced and fairly confident in that way.
Yeah, sure.
But when you're sitting at home, you've got a better view. You've got the overhead view. You've got the commentators' comments. When we're sitting at the Scotties behind that scoreboard, let me tell you, you can't even see the game. You don't even know who shot rock. So that's another thing that's on my list of things to work on is to get better viewing for the coaches. But so then you go out there a little blind. And you get there and you say, gee, do they have the out-turn come around? And your team tells you, yeah. And then you get back to the message and you realize, no, they don't have that out-turn come around. Then you kind of look like a fool. So that's a really tough job.
Yeah, no, it's tricky. I'll give you, but I mean, it's good. It's good theater, though. That's the one thing. I mean, it's
yeah,
good
and I agree. And so then they take that out of the game.
Yeah.
And what's one more minute? The broadcast. Gosh, the TV asks you to wait around for 3 minutes between every end and 8 minutes at halftime, and then they want you to save time.
Oh, there's so many ways they could tighten up the broadcast, right? I mean, we don't. Yeah. I play lead, and I don't think you have to see every lead rock. Right. So you come back and show where the rocks went, right? So
yeah, they could possibly pull that one off for sure.
There's a lot of places to save. All right, Rick. Well, I'm glad I saved that for the end there, because
okay.
Wait in with that. Let me give you the run back. I give you a topic, and you give me your thoughts in 1 to 3 words.
You bet.
Briar Pools.
Nada,
from a good Northern Ontario boy. Al Hackner as a coach.
Tremendous wisdom.
I guess he's coaching Tyler George's U.S. team, right? I guess I'll see him in Fargo. Is he going to Fargo?
He's leaving for Japan with them in 3 days.
Right.
And I'm not sure whether he's going to Fargo or not, but they could learn a lot from him.
Sure. Hopefully not too much. I have to play him.
Yeah, right.
The online void left when curling zone went down.
Yeah, that's too bad. Missing it.
Yeah, we're going to have to, I said to David Murdoch, we're going to have a virtual pass the hat, I think, to get this thing back.
Right.
Sherry Madaw and Kirsten Wall, both absent from the Ontario Scotties this year.
Really disappointing for the provincials, of course, and extremely surprising.
And great news probably for you guys.
Well, there's isn't there 4 or 5 other teams as well?
Yeah,
that didn't make it?
Yeah. Without curling zone, I'm not quite sure the whole field, to be honest. But
yeah, I was looking at it this morning. I would say there's at least 5 teams that I would have fully expected to be there that aren't there. So
right.
Very surprising.
Ian Tetley.
Ian Tetley, where'd that one come from?
I'd say it's a run back, Rick. I'm just trying to catch you off guard.
One of the best seconds to ever play the game, of course, and a good pal of mine. And it's too bad he's not playing anymore.
Yeah, he's not afraid to offer up some strategy from the second position either, is he?
He always had an opinion. And sometimes it was nuts and crazy for sure.
Guy was a winner though, man. He didn't go to many Briars and not win. That's what was amazing.
He won a ball, didn't he?
I think didn't he go once with Mike Harris and not win?
Oh, I'm not sure.
He might have gone. I think he might have gone once with Mike Harris and not win.
3 Briars and 3 Worlds, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He won. Yeah. He won the first 3 of both he went to, and then I think he went once with Mike Harris and they didn't win. So
obviously, it was more forgettable.
Yeah, it was really it was Harris's fault.
But Ian himself is not very forgettable.
The tuck delivery.
Just as good as any other delivery. Like you watch Jeff Stoughton, and there's still lots of young Manitobans doing it, and I really don't think it's any harder on the knee than the other delivery, and I don't think it necessarily should be taught, but nor should it be banned. So
yeah, I'd agree with all that. I don't think it's harder on the knee. I think there's some advantages to it. I'm not so sure that people shouldn't look at body types and maybe suggest it at times. But
and I agree with you 100% on that one, and yet now it's not allowed, and then you see some young people doing it, and some of the powers that be try to get them out of it, and I would never do that if it works. If it's working for the person, great.
Right. Neil Harrison's intern.
Non-existent.
Have you ever seen him throw one? Did you ever see him throw one?
It was incredible how they got around that thing. Neil says he's got 2 turns, the out turn and the hurry turn. And it was amazing how they played around that for all those years, and everybody in the world knew it.
Yeah. And finally, Cheryl Bernard's chances against Kevin Martin this weekend.
Oh, boy, I love Cheryl.
Yeah.
But I don't like her chances.
I'm on the same page here. It's really...
And it's not Cheryl, it's Scott. I wouldn't want to be going out there against Kevin Martin in the skins game, that's for sure. I got to watch them for the last 4 days, and their skill level, the 4 of them, and the effort and commitment they made to the game is absolutely phenomenal. And going up against them in any kind of game with somebody watching, I don't envy that one.
Yeah, they'll be in tough. But, of course, it's a no win for Kevin, really, though, as well. So he's got that to worry about, but I don't think it'll phase him too much. They're
so well prepared that I kind of don't think they're not human that way. I don't think they have to worry about things like that.
Yeah, there's an example of a team, where they certainly give a lot of credit to Coach Oucher, and as good as those guys are, they've improved a heck of a lot since they started together.
Oh, I know, and you watch them in that skills competition, the individual at the Continental Cup, they scored 27 out of 30. And that's kind of a microcosm of the way they operate in their level of excellence, and then the expectations they have of each other. I mean, it's quite phenomenal. They go out there, and the first guy makes a shot, and the other guys better keep up.
Right.
It sure works for them. They're unbelievable.
All right, Rick, I usually give everybody a chance to name their sponsors. I don't know if Krista McCarville's team has sponsors you want to name, or if you want to mention anybody.
Well, that'd be great. We have Thunder Bay. It's just a Thunder Bay company, and their name is Tower Light, and they erect microwave towers and do the lighting for them and that kind of thing. And so it's a local business guy that has been on board with Krista for the last 3 or 4 years, give us tremendous support. We couldn't do it without them. And on a national basis, RBC and Royal Bank of Canada is another great sponsor of ours, and again, kudos to them because we sure couldn't do it without them.
All right, well, good for them, and good luck to you and Krista's team coming up in the Scotties. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
That's Rick Lang on The Curling Show, a conversation that was recorded a few days after the World Financial Group Continental Cup and a few days before Team McCarville started play at the Ontario Scotties in Thornhill. Whether you want to compete at the level that Rick coaches or you just want to win a few more games in your Friday night mixed league, pick up a copy of Fit to Curl by John Morris and start following one of the training programs. The book's available at fittocurl.com and at Better Curling Pro Shops. As always, thanks for listening. Here's Black Pudding.